We don't need hippos in tutus ruining our stage, Melanie Winters said loudly enough for the entire registration area to hear, her eyes fixed on Sabrina Carter with undisguised disgust. This is a professional dance audition, not a charity event. The prestigious Elysium Dance Studio gleamed under morning light, all glass and polished chrome, but the beautiful surroundings only amplified the ugliness of the moment. The room fell silent as every head turned toward the plus-sized black woman who stood frozen at the registration table, the clipboard halfway between her hands and the sleek marble counter. Sabrina's mouth went dry. The mint gum she'd been nervously chewing turned to ash on her tongue. 20 pairs of eyes, mostly white, mostly attached to slender bodies in expensive athleisure, locked onto her curves, her dark skin, her Target-bought dance clothes that lacked designer labels. "I have a confirmed registration," Sabrina managed to say, her voice steadier than the trembling in her chest would suggest. She pulled out her phone, the coconut oil scent from her carefully styled hair wafting as she moved. "I'm here for the Devin Jackson video audition." Melanie's assistant Jason snickered, leaning down to whisper something in his boss's ear. "Oh, honey," Melanie replied with exaggerated patience. "There must be some mistake. This audition requires technical training and—" She paused, eyes sliding deliberately down Sabrina's body. "Certain physical attributes that align with professional standards. Perhaps you misunderstood the requirements?" A petite blonde named Zoe had already raised her phone, recording the humiliation with barely concealed delight. "This is going to go viral," she whispered to the dancer beside her. The cold plastic of the registration clipboard stuck to Sabrina's suddenly sweaty palms. "My confirmation number is 22789, she insisted. "Check your list." Melanie sighed dramatically, making a show of flipping through papers. "Fine. We're inclusive enough to let you audition. We need diversity in the reject pile too, I suppose." She scribbled on a sticker. "Number 87, last group. Don't waste too much of our time." The sticker felt like a brand of shame as Sabrina pressed it to her chest, the number nearly triple what most others had received. She moved to an empty spot against the wall, each step an act of defiance against legs that wanted to run. "Isn't she the night janitor?" a tall dancer nearby whispered, loud enough for Sabrina to hear. "I've seen her emptying my trash." "Guess she got confused about her place in the building," came the reply, followed by muffled laughter. Sabrina began her warm-up stretches, her movements deliberate despite the burning humiliation crawling up her neck. She hadn't told anyone she was auditioning today, not even Theo. What if they were right? What if her body was simply wrong for dance, no matter how much her soul yearned for it? Her phone vibrated with a notification from her anonymous dance account. Someone had commented, "When are you going to reveal yourself, Midnight Mover? Your choreography is fire." Across the room, Melanie watched with thinly veiled contempt, already certain of Sabrina's failure, already planning how to humiliate her further when she inevitably stumbled. Not today, Sabrina thought, a coal of anger igniting in her chest. They would learn. They would all learn. The apartment was still dark when Sabrina's first alarm blared at 4:30 a.m. She silenced it quickly, mindful of her brother sleeping in the room next door. The ceiling creaked above, Mrs. Ramirez from 3B starting her early shift at the hospital. Sabrina moved quietly through her morning routine, muscles aching from yesterday's audition. First round had gone exactly as expected. Melanie cut her demonstration short, barely letting her complete half the required sequence before dismissing her with a curt, "That's enough, number 87. But somehow, impossibly, her number had appeared on the callback list. The kitchen was small, but meticulously organized. Bills were stacked neatly on the counter, electricity past due, rent coming up, and the newest addition, the STEM program acceptance letter for Theo with its $15,000 price tag and 2-week deposit deadline circled in red. Sabrina ran her fingertips over the prestigious letterhead, the paper smooth and expensive against her work-roughened skin. "You're up early," Theo said, startling her. At 14, he was all gangly limbs and serious eyes, already taller than Sabrina despite being 12 years younger. 3 jobs, remember? Sabrina forced a smile, quickly tucking the letter into her bag. Go back to sleep. It's not even 5. Was looking at the stars, he said, gesturing to his telescope by the window. Jupiter's visible tonight. He hesitated. Any word on that summer program? The lie caught in her throat. Still waiting. But it'll work out. Always does. She tousled his hair like their mother used to do. Lock up when you leave for school. Outside, the pre-dawn air carried the metallic scent of coming rain. Sabrina's first job at Riverfront Coffee started at 5:30 a.m., a 6-block speed walk away. The constant smell of cleaning solution from her night job at Elysium Dance Studio still clung to her hands despite multiple washings. Her heavy keyring jangled in her pocket. Coffee shop, community center where she worked afternoons, dance studio, apartment. The physical weight of her fragmented life. By 2:00 p.m., Sabrina had already served hundreds of morning commuters and filed a stack of paperwork at the community center. Her feet throbbed as she collapsed onto a bench during her 15-minute break, scrolling through dance videos on her phone. A memory surfaced unbidden. Herself at 9 years old, practicing in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom. The recital was coming up, and she'd been assigned a solo part. She remembered the pride, the hours of practice, the way the music felt like it lived inside her bones. Then the teacher's voice, speaking not to her, but to her mother in the hallway. She has rhythm, but her body type. Perhaps she'd be better suited helping with costumes? Some bodies just aren't made for dance. The scratchy fabric of the costume she never got to wear. The sting of needle pricks as she altered outfits for thinner girls. The first time someone had told her that her body was wrong, that her dreams didn't fit her form. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. Call back audition tomorrow. The heaviness in her chest grew. What was she thinking? Melanie would never choose her, no matter how well she danced. But if she didn't try, if she didn't at least fight for this chance. Theo's letter flashed in her mind. His brilliant mind trapped in their neighborhood school where he was bullied for being too smart, for loving science instead of sports. The summer program could change everything for him. Connections, mentors, a path to college scholarships. The janitor's keys felt heavier in her pocket. Night fell as Sabrina pushed her cleaning cart through the empty hallways of Elysium Dance Studio. The building transformed after hours. No judgmental eyes, no whispers. Just polished floors and mirrored walls and blessed silence. She finished the bathrooms and lobbies quickly, saving Studio A for last. The largest practice room, the room where callbacks would happen tomorrow. At exactly 11:30 p.m., Sabrina locked the main doors from inside and wheeled her cart into storage. She changed quickly in the bathroom. Leggings, tank top, bare feet. Her muscles protested from the long day, but something else inside her stirred to life. Studio A was dark except for the city lights filtering through tall windows. Sabrina connected her phone to the small, portable speaker she kept in her bag. She propped the phone against the wall, setting its timer to record. The opening beats filled the empty space. Sabrina closed her eyes, letting the rhythm settle into her bones. When she began to move, she was no longer a janitor, no longer a barista or a receptionist. No longer the girl told her body was wrong. Her reflection in the mirrored wall showed what others refused to see. Extraordinary control, innovative transitions, perfect timing. Her size became an advantage, each movement carrying a power and presence that couldn't be replicated by smaller frames. Where others might flit, she commanded. Where they skipped, she grounded. Different, but no less magnificent. For 45 minutes, Sabrina danced like no one was watching, because no one was. This was her sanctuary, her church, her truth. Later, editing the video in her darkened bedroom, she carefully cropped out her face as always. The username Midnight Mover flashed as she uploaded another anonymous clip to her modest following online. Comments rolled in almost immediately. This choreography is insane. How do you make it look so effortless? When are you going to compete? You could win everything. Sabrina set her phone aside, the red light of her alarm clock casting a glow over Theo's acceptance letter on her nightstand. The deposit deadline stared back at her. 2 weeks to find $15,000. Tomorrow was callbacks. Tomorrow she would face Melanie again. Tomorrow she would either start to change her life or confirm what she'd been told since childhood. The sound of Theo turning pages in his science book drifted through the thin wall between their rooms. He was still awake, still learning, still dreaming beyond what their circumstances suggested was possible. Sabrina set her second alarm and closed her eyes, the music from her dance still echoing in her mind. Some dreams were worth the risk of failure. Some people were worth fighting for. The callback room vibrated with nervous energy as dancers stretched and whispered in small clusters. The sickly sweet clash of too many different perfumes hung in the air, making Sabrina's nose itch as she found a corner to warm up alone. No one made eye contact with her. Number 87, the janitor playing dancer, the token diversity candidate who'd somehow slipped through. "All right, everyone," Melanie announced, clapping her hands sharply. The sound cut through the room like a whip. "We're dividing you into 4 groups for the next round. When I call your number, join your assigned choreographer." Sabrina listened as numbers were called out, dancers sorted into groups of 5 or 6. The first 3 groups filled quickly with the slender, mostly white dancers. Her number remained uncalled. "And finally," Melanie said with a thin smile, "numbers 54, 71, 82, 87, and 93. You're with Jason in the corner." Sabrina looked at her group, all dancers of color, all with bodies that didn't fit the traditional dancer mold. The message couldn't have been clearer if Melanie had spelled it out. Here was the throwaway group, the ones kept around for appearances but never intended to advance. Jason walked them through a sequence that seemed deliberately designed for failure. The choreography featured extensive floor work, requiring dancers to slide through narrow spaces, complicated aerial moves with no spotters, and rapid spins in confined areas. Technical requirements that would challenge any dancer, but especially those with fuller bodies. The friction burn on Sabrina's elbow stung as she attempted a complicated slide across insufficient crash mats. She noticed adaptations she could make to better suit her body, but Jason cut her off every time she tried to adjust. "The choreography is fixed," he snapped. "If you can't execute it as shown, perhaps this isn't the right opportunity for you." Nearby, Zoe and her friends watched from their group, phones occasionally raised to capture moments of struggle, whispers and snickers barely concealed. Despite the challenges, when her turn came to demonstrate, Sabrina executed the routine with surprising precision. Her movements were different, more grounded, more powerful, but the technical elements were all there. She felt the satisfying vibration through her body as she landed a complex turn, the cooling sweat on her neck as she finished the sequence. The room had gone oddly quiet. Several dancers from other groups were watching with undisguised surprise. "That's enough, Sabrina," Melanie cut in, though she'd only completed half the required demonstration. "We need to move on." As they took a water break, Sabrina made her way to the bathroom. The hallway was empty except for the drinking fountain where she bent to quench her dry throat. Voices from around the corner made her pause. "Need to find a way to cut the fat girl before finals," Melanie was saying, her voice low but clear. "Devon's people won't want her body type on camera." "She's surprisingly good, though," Jason replied, sounding conflicted. "Doesn't matter," Melanie insisted. "This video will be seen by millions. We need dancers who represent the ideal, not that." A third voice joined them. Zoe. "Make the next round impossible for her. Something that requires extreme flexibility in small spaces. No one her size could possibly manage it." The metallic taste of fear filled Sabrina's mouth. Her heartbeat drowned out parts of their conversation as she pressed herself against the wall, trying to remain unseen. "Perfect," Melanie was saying. "We'll announce the special challenge tomorrow. Make sure all the thin girls know the real choreography in advance." Sabrina slipped back to the studio, hands trembling slightly. She'd known the odds were stacked against her, but hearing them actively plotting her elimination made it horrifyingly real. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She answered quietly, stepping into the hallway. "Ms. Carter, this is Dr. Wilson from Horizon STEM Academy." The voice was professional, clipped. "I'm calling about Theodore Carter's application." "Yes?" Sabrina's chest tightened. "There's been a change in our enrollment timeline. Due to unexpected demand, we need the deposit within 2 weeks to secure Theodore's spot, rather than the original month. Several waitlisted students are ready to pay immediately." The world seemed to tilt sideways. 2 weeks? That's $15,000 by the 15th, or we'll need to offer his position to another student. He scored remarkably well on our assessment. It would be a shame to lose him. Sabrina ended the call and leaned against the wall, breathing deeply. 2 weeks. The exact amount of time until the final dancer selection for Devin Jackson's video, and its $15,000 featured dancer fee. When she returned to the studio, Melanie was announcing the next round. "Callbacks continue tomorrow. We'll be testing your adaptability with a special challenge routine. Only 10 dancers will advance to the final round." Their eyes met across the room, and Sabrina saw the smug certainty in Melanie's gaze. The choreographer expected her to fail, had engineered it specifically. That night, as Sabrina swept the now empty studio floors, her mind raced with impossible choices. She could expose the discrimination, but who would believe the janitor over the renowned choreographer? She'd be blacklisted from the dance world entirely. Theo's opportunity would vanish. She paused outside Melanie's office, noticing the light still on. Through the crack in the door, she could see choreography notes spread across the desk. Tomorrow's surprise routine. The weight of the broom in her hands suddenly felt different. The tool of her lesser job might just provide access to the information she needed to survive. She glanced around the empty hallway, then back at the notes visible through the doorway. The honest path meant certain failure. The other path... Her phone vibrated. A text from Theo. "Just finished my science project. First place or bust." In that moment, her decision crystallized. She would beat them at their own game. The studio was empty at 1:30 a.m. except for the soft glow of Melanie's desk lamp. Sabrina moved silently through the office, her janitor's badge clipped to her hip. If anyone questioned her presence, she was simply doing her job, cleaning the administrative spaces after hours. Melanie's choreography notes lay spread across the polished surface of her desk. Sabrina pulled out her phone and carefully photographed each page, the soft rustle of paper the only sound in the quiet room. The smell of expensive leather from Melanie's planner mingled with the lingering scent of her designer perfume. The surprise routine was exactly as she'd feared. A deliberately complex sequence of movements designed to showcase extreme flexibility in confined spaces. Aerial transitions that relied on traditional body proportions. Rapid spins through narrow pathways that would leave fuller-figured dancers at a disadvantage. It was discrimination disguised as technical challenge, and it was brilliant in its cruelty. Sabrina was so focused on documenting the notes that she didn't hear the door open behind her. "Find anything interesting?" She whirled around, nearly dropping her phone. Andre Powell, the night security guard, stood in the doorway, arms crossed over his broad chest. 50-something, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I was just cleaning," Sabrina managed, tucking her phone away too quickly to be casual. Andre raised an eyebrow. "At Melanie's desk? With your phone out? Try again." The moment stretched between them. Sabrina calculated her options: denial, pleading, running. None seemed viable. "You're in the callback round," Andre said, surprising her. "I saw your name on the list when I did my rounds earlier." "How did you—" "I know everyone who works in this building, Sabrina, including the ones who practice dance routines after hours when they think nobody's watching." The startling clank of the door closing behind him made her jump. But instead of calling security or escorting her out, Andre simply walked to the desk and glanced at the papers. "So, Melanie's still playing her games," he said, shaking his head, "stacking the deck against anyone who doesn't fit her narrow definition of a dancer." Sabrina stared at him, confused by his tone. "You've seen this before? 3 years working security for this place? Yeah, I've seen plenty." He extended his hand. "Andre Powell, former security for Devin Jackson's last 2 tours, before I decided to settle in one place." His handshake was warm, his palm calloused. "You worked for Devin Jackson?" Andre nodded. 15 years in the industry before that. Seen it all." He gestured to the desk. "So you're what? Trying to get a leg up on tomorrow's surprise routine?" "They're deliberately trying to eliminate me," Sabrina said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I overheard them planning it, because of my body type." "I know." Andre's expression hardened. "And I've been watching you dance for months, Sabrina, after hours, when you thought the cameras were off." Her stomach dropped. "Are you going to report me?" To her surprise, Andre laughed. "Report the most talented dancer in this building? Hell no." He looked at her seriously. "You're something special. The way you move. It's not just technique. You've got soul in every step." The unexpected praise left her momentarily speechless. "But this—" He gestured to the notes. "This is Melanie playing dirty. What's your plan?" "Practice all night," Sabrina said, determination flooding back. "Find ways to make the impossible possible." Andre studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I'll help you. I've seen enough professional dancers to know what works." He checked his watch. "I do rounds every hour. Meet me in Studio A in 15 minutes. Bring your A game." For the next 4 hours, Sabrina practiced under Andre's watchful eye. He filmed her movements on his phone, offering suggestions based on years of observation. "Don't try to dance like them," he advised as she struggled with a particularly difficult transition. "Dance like you. Use your center of gravity as an advantage. Where they rely on conventional techniques, create alternatives." The burn in her muscles intensified as she repeated the moves dozens of times. By 5 a.m., her breath condensed in visible puffs in the cold studio, but she'd found ways to execute every element of Melanie's impossible routine, differently, but effectively. "You're ready," Andre said finally, as she collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but triumphant. "But there's something else you should know." He pulled out his phone, swiping to a video folder. "I've been collecting evidence of Melanie's discriminatory practices for years. Recordings, emails, conversations like the one you overheard yesterday." The blue glow of his screen illuminated their faces as he showed her clips. Melanie and Jason discussing how to eliminate undesirable body types, regardless of talent, conversations about keeping the studio's image aspirational by excluding certain dancers. "Why collect all this?" Sabrina asked, the tension in her shoulders temporarily relieved as she stretched her tired hands, knuckles cracking. "Because it's wrong," Andre said simply. "And because someday, someone would come along with the talent to expose it." He looked at her meaningfully. "Someone like you." "Me? I'm just trying to survive callbacks." "You're Midnight Mover," Andre said, surprising her again. "I recognized your style immediately. You've got thousands of followers who have never even seen your face." "How did you—" "Like I said, security cameras." He smiled. "The question is, what do you really want, Sabrina? To get through this audition, or to change things?" Sabrina thought of Theo, of the deadline, of the $15,000 that could transform his future. "I need this job, Andre. My brother—" "I understand," he said, nodding. "Then we make sure you get it. But maybe, just maybe, we can do more than that." He showed her another video on his phone, this one of Devin Jackson himself, speaking about wanting more diversity in dance. "I have connections," Andre said. People who might be interested in what's happening here, but first, let's get you through callbacks. As dawn broke through the studio windows, they formulated a plan that extended beyond just the audition. For the first time since this began, Sabrina felt something new blossoming alongside her determination. Hope. Sleep was a luxury Sabrina couldn't afford. After leaving the studio at dawn, she worked her morning barista shift in a fog, then caught a quick nap in the break room at the community center before callback round 2. Her body ached, muscles protesting the night's intense practice. The sting of antiseptic on fresh blisters made her wince as she applied bandages to her feet. The metallic scent of blood had seeped into her dance shoes, battle wounds from hours of repetition. Andre had helped her break down Melanie's impossible routine into components, finding alternative approaches for each challenging section. Where the choreography called for a traditional petit allegro requiring a small, light frame, Sabrina had developed a grounded variation with the same timing but different energy. Where it demanded extreme flexibility in confined spaces, she'd created transitions that showcased her exceptional control and strength instead. They're expecting you to fail on their terms, Andre had said, so succeed on yours. The callbacks were scheduled for 4 p.m. At 3:15, Sabrina's phone rang. Andre. Melanie changed the choreography, he said without preamble. I overheard her telling Jason. She realized someone had been in her office. The sudden drop in Sabrina's stomach felt like free fall. What? How am I supposed to? She's added a partner section, Andre continued. Each dancer will be randomly paired for a lift sequence. Randomly? Sabrina repeated, the tension headache already forming at her temples. Nothing's random with Melanie. Word is you'll be paired with Zoe. Of course. The smallest dancer paired with the largest, a deliberate mismatch designed for failure. I have 2 hours before my security shift starts, Andre said. Meet me at the studio. We need to rethink our approach. Sabrina arrived to find Andre already warming up in the small practice room he'd unlocked for her. The chalky texture of rosin dusted his hands as he demonstrated potential adaptations. If they expect you to lift her traditionally, they're setting you up, he explained, his confident voice walking her through options. But what if you invert the expectation? Use your core strength as the base while she provides the mobility. They worked frantically, developing contingencies for whatever Melanie might throw at her. Sabrina's body protested, but her mind remained sharp, absorbing every suggestion. At 3:50, doubt crept in. Maybe I should withdraw, she said quietly. They're determined to humiliate me. Call your brother, Andre suggested. Remember why you're doing this. Theo answered on the second ring, his voice excited. Sabrina, guess what? My robotics project got selected for the state showcase. If I place in the top 3, there's another scholarship opportunity. The sound of his enthusiasm cut through her doubt like sunshine through clouds. She could hear the whirring of small motors in the background. He was still working, still believing in possibilities. That's amazing, Theo, she said, her resolve strengthening. You're going to blow them away. Everything okay? He asked, suddenly perceptive. You sound tired. Just work, she lied. Hey, remember what Mom and Dad always told us after they died? We rise by lifting others, Theo recited immediately. You say it like every day. Because it's true, Sabrina said, more to herself than to him. Keep working on that project. I've got to run. After hanging up, she wrote the phrase on her inner wrist with a black marker. Rise and lift. The ink tingled against her skin, a physical reminder of what was at stake. The callback session was worse than she'd anticipated. Melanie announced the special challenge with barely concealed satisfaction, explaining that adaptability was essential for professional dancers. Each of you will perform the solo routine first, then transition immediately to a partner sequence, she explained, as dancers paired off according to a list Jason held. The partner work will focus on counterbalance and weight distribution. Sabrina's heart sank as she heard her name called with Zoe's. The petite blonde smirked, whispering something to her friends that made them giggle behind their hands. Just before her turn, Sabrina went to retrieve her dance shoes from her bag, only to find the left one slashed along the side seam, the right with its laces cut. She looked up to see Zoe watching her, innocence plastered across her face despite the suspicious scissors peeking from her bag. Instead of reacting, Sabrina calmly reached deeper into her bag and pulled out a second pair of shoes. She'd anticipated sabotage. The backup pair was identical, broken in, ready. The satisfied weight of them in her hands felt like a small victory. In the bathroom before her performance, Sabrina splashed cool water on her face, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The smell of her nervous sweat mixed with determination as she stared at her reflection. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, touching the rise and lift on her wrist. Her phone buzzed with a text from Andre. "Whatever happens, stay true to your style. Also, we have a special guest watching from the back. Don't look for them, just dance your heart out. Plan B is in motion." Special guest, Sabrina wondered briefly, but there was no time to dwell on it. Her number was being called. The studio felt electric as she took her position. Melanie, Jason, and a third judge, supposedly from Devin's team, sat at a table in front, tablets ready for notes. Zoe stood off to the side, looking smug and confident in their planned failure. Sabrina closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the vibration of the bass through the floor into her feet. In the momentary silence before the music began, she focused on her own determined breathing, pushing away all doubts, all fears, all limitations others had placed upon her. It was time to rise. The harsh stage lights created a wall of white glare as Sabrina took her position. 20 dancers had been narrowed to 10 for this final callback, and she was scheduled last, always an afterthought. The studio smelled of spray deodorant and fear, the squeak of dance shoes against the floor punctuating the tense silence between performances. Melanie sat center at the judges' table, flanked by Jason and a man introduced only as Mr. Thomas from Devin Jackson's team. A slender, unassuming figure in expensive casual wear who hadn't spoken a word, merely observing with inscrutable eyes behind designer glasses. "For our final assessment," Melanie announced, "each dancer will perform both a solo sequence and participate in a group coordination exercise. This will test not only individual skill, but your ability to blend with an ensemble." Her eyes flickered briefly to Sabrina. "Essential qualities for professional dancers." The subtle collective intake of breath from the dancers was audible. This was new, unexpected. Sabrina felt her mouth go dry. The other dancers had formed alliances during callbacks, practiced together, supported each other. She'd been deliberately isolated, excluded from their unofficial rehearsals. Zoe performed first, her technique flawless but mechanical. She executed each movement with precision but without emotion. Perfect extensions, perfect turns, perfect emptiness. The mysterious Mr. Thomas watched without expression, occasionally making notes on his tablet. Sabrina noticed him stifle a yawn halfway through. One by one, the dancers performed. Some were good, some exceptional, all conforming to the narrow physical ideal Melanie clearly preferred. The monotonous rhythm of technically perfect but emotionally vacant performances filled the hours. In the background, Sabrina could hear the soft muttering of Mr. Thomas to his assistant, who had joined him, neither looking particularly impressed. Finally, Melanie called her name. "Number 87, Sabrina Carter." The room seemed to hold its breath as Sabrina walked to center floor. Zoe and her friends exchanged glances, snickering behind their hands. Melanie's face showed smug anticipation of failure, of the plan coming together perfectly. The music began. A pulsing, challenging beat chosen specifically for thin, athletic dancers, full of rapid transitions that traditionally favored smaller bodies. But Sabrina had spent the night transforming these challenges into opportunities. From the first movement, she commanded the space differently than the others. Where they had skimmed the surface, she connected with the floor, using it as a partner rather than an adversary. Her movements were powerful but precise, grounded but fluid. She found the pockets between beats that others had missed, adding textures and layers to the choreography without changing its fundamental structure. For the section designed to showcase lightness, Sabrina defied physics. Her jumps didn't fight gravity. They embraced it, using momentum and core strength to create movements that were simultaneously powerful and ethereal. The feeling of perfect balance as she executed these moves sent a current of electricity through her body, muscles working in perfect harmony. Halfway through, the room's energy shifted palpably. The other dancers had stopped whispering, their attention captured despite themselves. Mr. Thomas sat forward in his chair, removing his glasses. Melanie's expression had transformed from smugness to discomfort. Sabrina made direct eye contact with her during a particularly difficult sequence, the very one that had been designed to make her fail. Instead of attempting the conventional approach, she executed a variation that maintained the integrity of the choreography while showcasing her unique abilities. The taste of imminent victory began to form on her tongue. Then came the group sequence, the final trap. As Sabrina moved to join the other dancers, she could feel their resistance. They'd been instructed, or had decided amongst themselves, to make this difficult. They subtly invaded her space, missed timing cues, creating a disjointed mess that would reflect poorly on her. But Sabrina had anticipated this too. Instead of fighting their sabotage, she incorporated it, adjusting her timing and spacing to make their mistakes look intentional. She felt the brush of another dancer intentionally coming too close, the slight push against her center of gravity, and converted it into momentum, into a new dynamic that elevated the entire sequence. The other dancers, thrown off by her adaptability, began making genuine mistakes. Sabrina seamlessly covered for them, creating coherence from chaos. For a brief, magical moment, even those who had sought to undermine her were caught in the current of her movement, following her lead despite themselves. The studio's air conditioning kicked in suddenly, the drop in temperature hitting her sweat-covered skin like a bracing challenge. She didn't falter. The room's collective breathing pattern had changed, shallow, attentive, engaged. For her final sequence, Sabrina unveiled what she'd been holding back. Movements inspired by street dance, contemporary ballet, and the African dance videos she'd studied for years, a fusion that was uniquely hers. Something none of the other dancers could replicate, regardless of body type. Technical mastery blended with raw emotion and cultural depth that transformed the sterile studio into a space vibrating with life. As she finished, suspended in the momentary weightlessness at the peak of her final move, the studio fell completely silent. Then, breaking all protocol, Mr. Thomas stood and applauded, a single, deliberate clap that echoed against the mirrored walls, followed by another and another. The sound of this unexpected applause shattered the tension. Several other dancers joined hesitantly, then more confidently. Melanie remained seated, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Thank you, Miss Carter," Mr. Thomas said, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been present before. "That will be all for today's auditions. We'll be in touch with our decision." As dancers gathered their belongings, buzzing with nervous energy and speculation, Sabrina caught Andre's eye from where he stood by the door in his security uniform. He gave her the smallest nod, confirmation that whatever Plan B was, it remained in motion. Outside the studio, Zoe and her friends huddled together, shooting venomous glances in Sabrina's direction. "Technical stunts don't make you a real dancer," Zoe said loudly as Sabrina passed. "Some people just don't have the right aesthetic, no matter how many tricks they can do." Sabrina simply smiled and continued walking. For once, the insults bounced off her, unable to penetrate the certainty of what she'd just accomplished. Whether she got the job or not, she had danced her truth, and no one could take that away. 3 days passed with no word from Elysium Dance Studio. Sabrina continued her daily routine: morning coffee shop, afternoon community center, evening janitorial work. The silence was its own form of torture. Had she imagined the impact of her performance? Had Mr. Thomas's applause meant anything at all? On the 4th day, While mopping the community center hallway, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, heart pounding. "Is this Sabrina Carter?" A crisp, professional voice. "Yes, speaking. This is Elysium Studios calling. Your presence is requested tomorrow at 2 p.m. for the final decision regarding the Devin Jackson video. Please come to Studio A." The call ended before she could ask questions. Sabrina leaned against her mop, trying to steady her breathing. Final decision. Not a rejection email or form letter. An in-person meeting. At 1:55 p.m. the next day, Sabrina pushed through the studio doors, her best dance clothes carefully pressed, her confidence a fragile thing she cradled like a flame in wind. The reception area was surprisingly empty. The usual buzz of activity was absent. No dancers warming up, no administrators rushing about. Andre stood by the Studio A entrance, his security uniform immaculate. He gave her a reassuring nod as she approached. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Just be yourself," he replied cryptically. "Everything's in motion." Inside Studio A, a small group waited. Melanie stood rigid by the judge's table, her expression carefully neutral. Jason hovered nearby, looking distinctly uncomfortable. The other callback finalists sat in chairs along one wall, including Zoe, whose confident smirk had been replaced by confusion. Mr. Thomas stood center floor, consulting his phone. He looked up as Sabrina entered. "Ah, Miss Carter, right on time. Please join us." He gestured to an empty chair, which Sabrina took hesitantly. "I've gathered everyone here to announce our decision regarding the featured dancer for Devin Jackson's upcoming video," Mr. Thomas began, his voice carrying an authority that seemed new. "Before I do, I'd like to offer some context." He paced slowly, considering his words. "The dance industry has long struggled with issues of representation, body diversity, and inclusion. Artists like Devin Jackson are committed to changing that narrative." Melanie shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Thomas, perhaps we should simply—" "Actually," he interrupted, removing his glasses and tucking them into his pocket, "I should introduce myself properly." With a swift movement, he pulled off what Sabrina now realized was a well-crafted wig, revealing distinctive dreadlocks. He stood straighter, his entire demeanor transforming. "I'm Devin Jackson." The distinctive timbre of his famous voice was suddenly recognizable, unmistakable. A collective gasp of recognition rippled through the room. Zoe's mouth fell open. Jason froze mid-step. "I wanted to observe this audition process firsthand," Devin continued, "to see how studios like Elysium handle talent that doesn't fit conventional molds." His gaze swept the room, landing on Melanie. What I witnessed was deeply troubling. Melanie's face had drained of color. "Mr. Jackson, I can explain. The deliberate sabotage of a talented dancer based solely on body type, the manipulation of choreography to exclude certain physiques, the cultivation of a toxic environment that privileges aesthetic over artistry." Devin shook his head. "I'm not interested in explanations." He turned to Sabrina, his expression warming. "What I am interested in is authentic talent. Ms. Carter, your performance wasn't just technically impressive, it was transformative. You didn't just execute the choreography, you elevated it." The weight that had been pressing on Sabrina's shoulders for days, for years, began to lift. She could taste the joyful tears she tried to hold back. "Which is why," Devin continued, "I'm offering you not only the featured position in this video, but a place as lead dancer in my upcoming world tour." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Melanie stepped forward, her professional mask slipping. "This is highly irregular. We have protocols." "I'm also familiar with your protocols, Ms. Winters," Devin cut in, his tone hardening. "Thanks to my cousin." Andre stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Been documenting the discrimination here for years, cuz. Just needed the right moment and the right dancer to make it matter." Devin nodded. "The videos Andre shared with me months ago, your midnight practices, Sabrina, were what caught my attention initially. I recognized your style immediately. your midnight mover. Sabrina's eyes widened. You follow my account? Along with thousands of others who recognize real talent when they see it. Devon smiled. Talent that deserves to be seen, not hidden. The studio door opened again, and a woman with a press badge entered, followed by a photographer and another man in a business suit. This is Tiana Washington from Dance Today magazine, Devon explained, and Michael Chen, my attorney. We're here to announce not only your new role with my tour, but also the launch of the Jackson Dance Initiative, a scholarship program for dancers with non-traditional body types and backgrounds. Devon turned to address the room at large. The dance world changes today. The days of studios like this one promoting a single narrow ideal are over. As if on cue, Sabrina's phone began vibrating incessantly in her pocket. She pulled it out to see notifications flooding her screen. Zoe's recording of the initial insult at registration had somehow gone viral overnight. But the comments were overwhelmingly supportive of Sabrina, condemning Elysium's practices. You planned this, Melanie said, her voice barely controlled. No, Andre replied. You did. We just made sure people saw it. The next hours passed in a blur of interviews, contract discussions, and congratulations. The warm embrace of Andre as he congratulated her. The photographer capturing the moment Devon officially welcomed her to his company. The shell-shocked expressions of dancers who had dismissed her now watching her rise. 3 weeks later, Sabrina sat in the kitchen of a new apartment, her professional choreographer's notebook open before her, its smooth texture still unfamiliar under her fingertips. Theo burst in from school, his excited voice filling the space as he described his robotics project's first-place win at the state competition. And Mr. Kaplan says I'm practically guaranteed the full scholarship if I keep this up through summer program, he exclaimed, dropping his backpack on the counter. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it, Sabrina said, smiling as she signed the last page of her contract with Devon's tour. You earned it. Sorry. Later that night, after Theo had gone to bed, Sabrina returned to the dance studio, not as a janitor, but as a choreographer with keys and permission. The empty space welcomed her, as it always had. But now, when she set up her phone to record, she didn't hide her face. Her significantly larger social media following didn't just want Midnight Mover anymore. They wanted Sabrina Carter, the dancer who had broken barriers, who had shown that talent transcended body type. As she moved through new choreography for Devon's opening number, feeling the pleasant burn of muscles still working hard despite success, her phone chimed with a text message. Devon, confirming tomorrow's rehearsal schedule. Beside it was a photo Theo had sent, himself and his robotics team celebrating their victory. Sabrina paused, looking at her reflection in the mirror. The studio was silent except for her breathing, the echo of her own voice as she whispered their family motto, We rise by lifting others. And rise she had, not by becoming someone else, not by shrinking herself to fit others' expectations, but by claiming her space unapologetically, by dancing her truth until the world had no choice but to watch and learn and change. She pressed play on the music and began to move again. The journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Did Sabrina's journey of overcoming prejudice and claiming her rightful place inspire you? There are countless untold stories of triumph against discrimination waiting to be shared. At Beat Stories, we bring you powerful narratives that celebrate resilience, talent, and the human spirit breaking through barriers. Don't miss our next compelling story. Subscribe to the Beat Stories channel now and hit the notification bell to experience more emotional journeys of underdogs rising above adversity and changing their worlds forever.
This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.